How to complete a My Success sheet at home. So the first thing you need to do is you need to add in your information at the top, such as your name. I'm just going to put in a random example. And then you need to put in your art class and your tutor group. If you're not sure about your art class, then you can look on your timetable on Go for Schools. But for example, it might be 9A5, and then your tutor group might be 9E. Your project theme is natural forms, so you fill that in there. Don't worry about knowledge, planning and creating at the moment. That's the space for your assessment grades, which we'll add later. And then again, teacher feedback, don't worry about that section either. You do need to fill in this section, which is my reflection, what I would like to do next with my to finish my clay pot. Now, obviously, we're not quite finished with your pots and we're not going to be able to finish them for a little while now. But I wanted to take this opportunity for you to have a plan so that you know what to do when you do get back to them. So there's kind of two things I'd like you to add to this section. The main thing I want you to think about is how you intend to add colour to it. So obviously you can describe that, and I'll show you an example in a moment. You could also add in an image. So it might even be that you have a look online at some different examples of different pots with glaze and find an image of the types of colour that you would like to use on your pot and actually add it into the sheet here. So as an example, you could search clay pot glazed, and then go to images and have a look through. Some will be much more interesting than others, but it might be that you find an image that you want to use, or you could refer to an artist that we've looked at, such as Kate Malone glaze. Again, it could be that you add in an image that sort of shows the types of colours that you wish to use in your pot. So if you wanted to use these sort of subtle warm tones, or if you want to use some blue colours here, for example, I might use this image here. So I'm actually going to paste it into that section. Might be that it's quite large at first, so obviously shrink it down. Just going to leave it like that. And then I also want to add a little bit of text here. Now it might be easier to write it straight in, or to add in a text box, whatever works for you. I think I might add a text box because then that makes things a bit easier. Right, so I have created a clay pot design inspired by natural forms. When it has been bisque fired, you might remember that bisque firing is the first stage of a firing process. When it has been bisque fired, I will then apply glaze to add colour and a waterproof layer. I intend to use different shades of cold colours, such as blue and green. So you might write something along those lines, obviously depending on what it is you want to achieve with your pot. There we go. And then obviously I've included an image. You need to add this bit next. So what knowledge did you draw upon during the unit? Now this sort of links primarily to the type of information that you were asked about in your knowledge quiz. So there was quite a lot within that. Obviously there's formal elements, so use of colour theory or tone or line or texture. There's knowledge and information about artists that we looked at, such as Mark Powell, who used whose biro drawing, or Kate Malone, who we looked at quite a lot. And then, of course, knowledge about clay techniques as well. So an example might be, I used, obviously make sure your font is big enough that you can read. I used my knowledge of the artist Kate Malone to inform a research page in my sketchbook. I also used my knowledge of colour theory when choosing what colours to include in my clay pot design. So that's sort of 2 examples there. Then this section here is what skills did you use? Now skills is when you're actually demonstrating your knowledge. So there's lots of skills you demonstrated within this project. Practical skills in terms of creating tonal values with biro, blending different tone with chalk pastels and specialist pencils, and also of course your 3D skills using clay. So a good example would be I used my 3D making skills such as coiling and scoring in order to create a clay pot or tile outcome. Another example might be I used 2D skills such as colour blending when using chalk pastels. And the final section that you need to complete is this one here, which links to the inspired mantra, which obviously is very important at LECA, and I've listed them along the bottom. I think there's lots of examples of how you have used these different elements within your project, how you've demonstrated them. So for example, if you've been independent whilst completing homework, if you know that you've got good scores for your homework, then perhaps that shows you've been independent. If you found something challenging, perhaps you've been progress driven or solution focused. If you've provided lots of answers in class discussions, perhaps that means you've been enthusiastic. So I'm going to say, within this project, I have shown that I am solution focused because when I found coiling with clay challenging, I never gave up and I asked for help in order to complete my pot. And that is the sheet completed. When you've got to that point, all you need to do is save it and then you submit it back to your art teacher using Teams, and then obviously we can use it when back in school. And do let your art teacher know if you've got any questions about this. Thank you.